Thank you, Jonathan, and thank you, James, for this beautiful presentation, or this introduction to this uh, beautiful article entitled "The Grihastha Ashrama," or the householder. As it was mentioned by James, the four ashramas in Hinduism means represent the stages of how a life of a man goes through the different stages of life. He indicated the four uh, of these stages and uh, what the person should be doing during this time and what happened during the life during this time in the life of the person. But for our presentation tonight, we are just focusing, as Jane mentioned, in the second stage, the Grihastha Ashrama. And the question is why? Well, it is because this stage is considered to be the highest of the four, for from it the other three springs. Jane mentioned that, and it mentioned how the correlation goes in these four different stages. But also, it is because it is a special time for a spiritual partnership with another soul. It is when home becomes a place for worship and devotion. It's the time where where the practice of self-denial for the sake of children and family happens. And it is the home building duty time. And let's go to think about this home building concept because that's the heart of our conversation tonight. BP Wadia has this amazing capacity of expressing in uh, short words an amazing knowledge that comes from the heart, and it's very easy to touch everybody's heart. He indicates that the home building by man, it is the reflection on earth of heavenly activity of God. So when we reflect about this statement and how this home building takes place not only here but in different levels of the human evolution, then we are guided to think about the work that the elder brothers do through their love, sacrifice, and devotion for the human family, which it is all in one. And this family, it is divided in two groups. One is a group of men with fully illuminated minds, and in the other extreme, we have the animal man, almost mindless. It is important to highlight here that the concept of mind here is related to higher manas. But in between these two groups, that's still one family, we have a vast range of different intelligences. But all these different minds or, or this whole family is working toward the same end, and is the evolution of the human race. So when we think about this and we think about the work of elder brothers, we have to keep that in mind in order to understand how this work is also happening in our society. We have this maximum axiom that indicates that as above, below. So if we have that in mind, then we can easily see the connection of this path in the following section. So building families and building home is an instinctive path for everyone. Some people might realize it sooner, other ones later, but it happens in a natural way because the progression of the animal man into a divine man depends upon man's becoming human. So here the question is, where does the human take his or her first steps in order to become divine? And then each of us carries within the soul ideas related to the rearing of the family and the building of the home. We all need a safe place to be. We all need and desire a place where we feel secure and we can share love with people that we love. But then, when we consider all these and we want to take this a little bit deeper, we have to ask ourselves if we can conceive any social organization without the family foundation. Let's think about this. This work that I'm sharing with you tonight, it's something that we do in non-traditional schools, especially with children from 3 to 6 years old. And with this work, what we are looking is to guide the natural inclination that the child has to understand her connection with the rest of the world. And this work is called Me in the Universe, and it can be presented in different ways. So the child as individual recognize herself, but then understand that it belongs to a home. That is the first stage where the child feels secure. But then the home belongs to a street, and that street belongs to a city. But that city belongs to a state, and then if that state belongs to a country, and that country belongs to a continent. That's how it goes. Then this continent is part of our Earth, and Earth is part of the solar system, and the solar system is part of the universe. We can see it also the other way around, starting from the universe, going all the way down to the child, to the individual. So these all show us how we are all interconnected and how one base creates the other one and so on. But the other great point of this work is that it shows what homes represent and is the first environment for the newborn person. So the social organization and the family base is not something new. There is a lot of philosophical and political thoughts about this. For tonight, I'm only going to share two that shows in a great way uh, what this means. So the first one that we have is Confucius. Confucius indicated that in any family organization exists something that he called filial piety, or in Chinese, xiao. It's a virtue of respect for one's parents and ancestors and of the hierarchies within society. For example, father, son, elder, junior, and male and female. He added that the state, the family writ large, was the most harmonious, orderly, and natural form of government. But it also indicates that in order to govern others, one must first govern oneself according to the universal order. So if we think about this, he brings the responsibility to the individual that is getting ready to create a family. And this family is the most harmonious and natural form of government that later on will create these societies. Aristotle did the same. He indicates that the Greek polis, or the city state, start in family groups and progress naturally to forming villages and finally come together in cities or states. He indicates also that the family forms the root of human relationships. but the city is the flower. Stop here for a moment and think about what kind of flower then this society is going to have, considering that the family forms are the root of those gardens. B.P. Waria indicates one more time that to build a home as it should be built is to precipitate on earth the kingdom of the gods. So, how do we do that? How we precipitate this kingdom on earth? And how can we replicate it on earth? And the other question that we can have is, where do we start that task? In theosophy as well, and in the uh, wisdom religions from Asia, especially Buddhism and Hinduism, we are familiar, and some are practicing, or we try, or we are inspired to follow the paramis as the roadmap of virtues that should guide our life, and of course our family life. But then the question is, where do we start that task? Of course, it starts with us. But when we decided to have a family, that task start with that decision and start at home. Does anybody would like to read this quote? Please help me out. I can see, so you go ahead because I cannot see who is talking or not.
Is Shoba here?
I can do it. I'll do it. Yeah.
Please.
Thank you.
If your instinct is correct, you will not be far from the highest ideal, although you may not exactly achieve it. When the individual families have learned kindness, then the whole nation has learned kindness. When the individual families have learned courtesy, then the whole nation has learned courtesy. When one man is greedy or avaricious, then the whole country is plunged into disorder. Such is the law of things. That is why it is said that a single word may spoil an affair, and a single man can set the country in order.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think this quote, it is a reaffirmation of what we already instinctively know. And there is more about this. There is a lot being said about how society, how the families impact positively or negatively our society. And the Dalai Lama is one of them. He's very active advocating for the role of the family. He indicated that as individuals, we can influence our own family. Our own families can influence our communities, and our communities can influence our nations. Pope John Paul II also indicated that as the family goes, so goes the nation, and so goes the whole world in which we live. And Confucius, one more time, indicated that to put the world right in order, we must first put the nation in order. To put the nation in order, we must first put the family in order. To put the family in order, we must first cultivate our personal life. We must first set our hearts right. And this is exactly the role that the Grihastha has for our society. And how this happened, we had to start indicating love is the power of family and home building. It is love that is represented through the sacrifice of the elders when they are doing the duties for their younger generation. Here, I think it is important also to consider the sacrifice that our great masters, our elder brothers, are doing every day for humanity, for this big family. Love is a devotion of the adults, of the Grihastha to the family. Love is the gratitude of the youngest toward the adults and the elders. And love is the respect for this circle of love life, because this circle is going to repeat as long as the Grihastha keep in mind his um, his duty and his devotion not only to the family but also to society and to the country. So we can see the home building phase of stage from two point of view or from two levels. One is at the individual level, and in this particular stage, the home building that is again, it is led or lead by the Grihastha. It is a great school which teaches on self-awareness and temperance. Temperance. It is a path that provides opportunity for walking the path of renunciation in an easy way. And I quote, I put the quotation mark highlighting the easy way because um, this might be considered an easy way if we stop and think about the path of renunciation that we have to have in order to continue our spiritual development. But this easy way of parenthood or the home building might not be as easy either. And it's also the time of the manifestation of pure love, the sacrificial love and the reward is as is poured out. At the society level, this home building has another impact. The home building happens to become the cell of the householder. Is that microorganism that is going to grow so much and it's going to branch in so many different ways that it's going to impact the world. But this happens at this level. Also, the home building is the seat of the society and is the nucleus of humanity. It's the foundation of the state and is the reading of a new world order. When uh, when we talk about this, the rearing of a new world order, it is interesting to consider that, especially in developed countries and here in the United States, once when a family is constituted, uh, parents are expected to go back after the first week of the baby, once the baby is born. So maybe the grihastha role that has to happen from the moment that the baby is born, it doesn't happen as can be as it happened in remote villages in uh, countries from the south. Uh, but here, that process takes place with everybody that is involved in the life of that child. Think about it, childcare, and the importance of the work that all these care providers um, brings to the life of a child, and also to the family that is making a sacrifice, having to leave their child in the care of other one, to keep working and society keep moving with their economy and all the work system that implies. So these considerations bring us to the theosophy and the home building. B.P. Wadia, again, in a beautiful statement, indicated that children of theosophies will become theosophies. If we think about this and we place ourselves in the Grihastha role, then I think it becomes easier to see the impact that this role has for our society. There is a beautiful statement here in the US that I learned when I moved here. And the fact that it's such a strong conviction, but also that everybody knows it, is one of these things that becomes a truth, and it can be practiced everywhere. It takes a village to raise a child. So we as theosophies, we are part of that village, and we are part of that Grihastha stage, maybe at home, maybe outside home, maybe in our neighborhood. It depends. But if we keep that role in mind, um, the impact in our society will be more positive. How do we do this as theosophists? Uh, for this, I had to think. I stopped and read the ULT declaration and the principles that are contained there. It's like a roadmap that can be used in order to keep our role and helping this village through the exemplification in practice of the fundamental principles of the philosophy of theosophy, through the understanding of the self, helping and working in the realization of our own divine and immortal nature, and then dedicating our devotion or being devoted to a profounder conviction of universal brotherhood. The awakening of a higher desire to establish on earth, in one's own state and domicile, a home patterned after the laws of heaven. So, since the Grihastha Ashrama is such an important state for the life of the child, for the life of the family, for our society, for our nation, and we are considering as theosophies how we can support this stage. I I made maybe something a little bit ambitious is trying to see how the Grihastha role happens and how the theosophy role happen and how these roles are um, linked or intrinsically interconnected. So the Grihastha is called the grace householder. He's the one that keeps the family together. He's the one that provides for family, provides love, stability, fidelity, and also becomes the protector of earth. Because while what the Grihastha is protecting the family at that level, earth is being protected and the human race is having another opportunity to continue the evolution, to continue its evolution and the helps of others. It becomes a preserver of justice. If it's something, it's not good for the Grihastha home, and not good for another family, another home. But also working into the family is providing the justice that the human race deserves in order to continue the evolution path. And then it becomes a provider of the weak. And here, the weak can be considered in different ways. For example, the children, uh, the those that decided to stay home to help to raise a family. It can be the elders, members of the family that are helping here. It can be also those that, thanks to the work that this Grihastha is doing inside home and outside home, are getting a benefit for their evolution path. On the other hand, the theosophist becomes a practitioner of the fundamental principles of the theosophy, one was supporting this goal or working on this goal. And then it becomes, I would say, a more disciplined student of the self. And it becomes a devoted and preserver of universal brotherhood. If we see these principles, universal brotherhood is that manifestation of love that support the Grihastha role and support all the stages that the Grihastha is also supporting. And to end this presentation, I would like to end with this quote of V.P. Waria that indicate what as theosophy and how we as theosophy should act in order to preserve the institution of family and our societies. As theosophists, we must lead the way, establishing homes as centers from which influence radiates, giving dignity and grace to life, exemplifying filial piety, marital fidelity, and parental protection. That will be it. Yeah.
Thank you, Lizette. Are you through?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. That was so thoughtful, and I love the way you distilled it to its essences in terms of what the Grihastha Ashrama from the standpoint of a person, but also V.P. Wadia's article. I hope you hear my voice.
Yeah, we can.
I hope it has in it the gratitude and respect to Lisette's presentation, because it was really very much wonderful to distill things, Lisette, and that's just wonderful. Jonathan has the United Lodge of Theosophists in San Diego, of course, is hosting this whole occasion. I forgot to mention that at the beginning. And also, I've been asked to chair the meeting. And in this particular instance, since we are experimenting with different modes of presentation and structuring the questions and so forth, without getting elaborate or heavy, but being flexible, on this occasion, questions should be directed to me, and then I will either answer them or ask for people to comment on, make suggestions or answer the questions. But Lizette, you always have, if you want to say something about, by all means do. Otherwise, but I'm the point man today. So if you have comments, by all means share your comments, and certainly Shobha, we're leaning in your direction with ears attuned. But also by all means raise them. I mean, think about the poor state of the world with families. Good heavens. When one reads B.P. Wadia's article on Grihastha Ashrama, you can almost feel the tears that are in his whole being over the condition of what has transpired in India. But he sees it as a madness in the world because of the competition, the competitive attitude has, and combine that with other factors. He said, and it's so sad that this golden model of what a Grihastha Ashrama could be is just so ignored in the West, but also increasingly in the East, I would imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe someone can raise a question, make a comment. I'm going to go turn on another computer.
Yeah.
See if it makes
Okay.
any
Well,
difference.
okay. We'll just entertain conversation. Leseth, you're in the hot spot.
Yeah.
Okay. But I think Shobha is raising her hand, so
Yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I think that was beautifully done, Lisette. I loved it. But I think in today's world, I don't know what a family means any longer. There's a lot of different kinds of problems, starting from poverty, starting with all kinds of situations like mental illness. So I'm just thinking of two right now: poverty, mental illness, dealing with the daily grind. And the result of all that leads to all kinds of situations that we call dysfunctional today. So how do we try to create that model of a Grihastha Ashrama that BP Wadia and you so eloquently mentioned?
thank you, Shobha. I have to confess that when I was preparing this presentation, all these thoughts also came to my mind. And but at the same time, and I think that was the intention of the last part of the presentation, is to highlight that the role of us as theosophists has to consider that state of matter right now. Without any doubt, our societies are confronting more problems at that level than we might have before. And that's why I say that, especially in these societies where parents need to go back to work so fast, especially when parents need to spend so much time at work and somebody else is raising their children. This is one, I think, from my point of view, the Grihastha Ashrama stage needs to be considered in a wider way. It doesn't go only just to one person or two persons in a household. It goes to a society. And that's why I think this statement about it takes a village to raise a child it's more evident now than before. And our role as students of theosophy, or just people that wants to contribute in service to a better society, is precisely that. I will add that we have more challenge now. Social media, for example, is one big challenge because there's no way to control that and to control the access that people from very young age have. But even though the task is hard, we cannot be intimidated or be hopeless about how we can help in order to do that. Poverty is existing, has been existing, and I think it will still exist in years to come. And here, we also have to be mindful about karma and the situation that these families have to confront that might be going beyond our regular understanding. But what we can understand is the way how we have to support that. Right now, we have families that are just one member and one child, one caregiver and one child. We can consider what's happening in those places where children get abandoned and you have an institution that is taking care of these children, those children need a family, and that institution could in some ways be that family nucleus that is going to help them to branch. So I think a lot about that, and I think our task has to include that service that goes beyond our own small family group.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was beautiful, Seth.
Very nice.
But the whole presentation was just beautiful.
Mm.
So much.
That's thank you to VP Wadia that has had that power of sending all these messages in such a beautiful way that we all get inspired from the heart.
No. Is there any other questions or comments for Liseth? I was wondering if you thought, Liseth, that how am I going to say this? And you did touch on this. If you look at life from the perspective of opportunity, as opposed to the permanency of roles, because with reincarnation, what role is really permanent anyway, right? But each role that we have to play, whether it's for a whole life or for a decade or whatever it is, it seems like it's an opportunity to learn from karma. And this householder phase seems like quite the opportunity. And in Theosophy, we talk about devotion, and in the Bhagavad Gita, it says there's all these different devotion by this means, devotion by means of this, devotion by means of that. So we're like, well, what is this devotion already, right? But it seems like there's what you talked about the devotion of the elders to the young people and to the householder, to the whole unit, I guess is how you said that, and then and the children to the elders and so forth. Anyway, I think you kind of know where I'm going with the question, even if I don't. Could you help me?
Yeah. This this stage, this ashrama, if we consider deeply the role that it plays for our society and our families, is the stage of devotion that goes beyond the spiritual devotion, but it goes into the mental, emotional, physical devotion. If we think about it, a new mom, a mom that just had a baby.
Mm-hmm.
And if we think about all the transformation that is happening in the life of that mom and everything that she has to leave behind or in standby just to dedicate herself to the baby. And then I think it is a simpler way to see the devotion and how devotion happens with the miracle of life. And if I think society is moving toward a more understanding and a more supportive role of that special time, that it not only affects the mother, but it also the father and the other members of the family. So if we see that devotion growing and expanding, it is a beautiful, I would say, a beautiful gift, because it's happening in the mom and expanding to the baby and then expanding to society and so on, so forth. So that might be one of the most approachable ways, or one of the most practical ways to understand devotion from the point of view of family. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Nate, why don't you,
Okay. Oh, yeah. You
you're
can hear
on.
me. Great. All right. Well, I just wanted to say there's so much in this article, and thank you for that wonderful presentation of the ideas. A lot of things pop out. One being that children of theosophists become theosophists. Now, I noticed there wasn't like a time indicator on that. Like, it could be this lifetime, maybe some other lifetime. But I'm reminded, you mentioned a lot about, or the article referred to, like the national character, and I know in the Key to Theosophy, HPB talks about. Well, I was trying to find the reference, but basically, this wisdom religion has come. It has unique expressions in every country. I thought that was so interesting. That is appropriate to the to that culture, to those people. And as we become more of a global culture, more of a internet world, sometimes I think. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm losing my thread here. That's just something that stood out for me. It's really curious to me, this whole idea of a national character, or of a. I mean, it's really about our individual character, right? We're and when we look at our family karma, and we as you said, this is not necessarily the easy path, the Grihastha Ashrama, to be a householder. I mean, we have poop emergencies as house. So I was talking with a grandparent the other day, and her grandchildren came running into the room and said, "There's poop everywhere." I don't know if that happens so much. That's a family thing. That happens in a family situation. But okay, I'm sorry. But those are the things that stood out for me about the children of theosophists becoming theosophists. This idea of this path that is so rewarding, because having the young listen to the elders, and having the elders care for the. I mean, we all take care of each other in different ways, and I was just wondering if you could. Well, I just wanted to comment on these units within units, and the combinations of them. It's really unknowable, the karma of it. But I'm sorry, I don't have a point. But you inspired me.
No, I understand. I understand your. I think your chain of thought, because it happened to me when I started to consider this article. And each of us, it doesn't matter in what stage of life we are at, we are leading by example. Everything that we do, everything that we say is showing the other one what to do or not. So what the statement says, the children of theosophy will become theosophists, is precisely that thought. If we are practicing what we are learning, our children will do the same. In most of the cases, we don't even have to sit down to explain, especially for the early stages of the childhood, where the child has just that absorbent mind that everything that is around the environment, you will become part of that child. And then when we consider how interconnected we all are, that we are Grihasthas not only in our home, but everywhere where we go, especially when we are interacting with friends that have children, when we go to the supermarket and there are some children around, we are part of that role too, because they are observing what we are doing. And also, we are supporting the society that is living that particular time. Uh, yeah, family issues. If we consider this and that we are all one big family, even though we are in different times, different places, um, different moments with different karmas. We are all one big family, and everything that we do will affect our family for good or for bad. So, as you mentioned, studying theosophy is so it's so meaningful when we have the opportunity to stop, process, and think how powerful can we be at any moment. Then the perspective of what I'm doing, how I'm affecting others, and how this big family that is in the same uh, evolution race, well, I don't want to call it a race, but in the evolutionary path, then everything is trying to make more sense. We can see this path from the individual, as I showed the picture that we do with the children, or we can see it from the universe going down. Uh, and then how all these processes happen, and how we are always being helped by our elder brothers, that if we think about it, they are our ancestral, they are our all parents in some way.
Mhm.
So the Grihastha stage, after considering a lot, I I conclude that it is the stage that we are living every moment that we are interacting with people in our places, outside of our places, in our workplace, etc. So I I see it as an amazing realization of gift and interconnectedness that we all have.
You know, if I could say, you inspired me again. You know, there's such a sense of loss these days. I think, you know, a loss of, uh, well, culture, really. I mean, for many years I worked in the field of early childhood education, and sometimes, well, I mean, this is mostly what we talk about when we talk about working with families. We're talking about culture. We're talking about what is passed on from one generation to another. And some people, you know, Americans, sometimes they think they don't have culture because they're not aware that culture is something that is, you know, part of their everyday life. They think it's something exotic. Like if you're a white person, you think like, well, no, we don't. That's like other people have culture, but really it's all of us, and we have lost a kind of a continuity of connection with our ancestors. And I know Jim talks about this a lot of times in terms of the stories that we pass on to our children, stories, heroic stories of our own ancestors. These are lost. We're focused on the, you know, on YouTube or what have you, but we need to remind you. This is the most difficult question, I think, sometimes to ask people who are suffering, but just to think about the best in themselves, and that they get from their mother and their father. And maybe there's a lot of pain or suffering or conflict between generations, but you know, we all carry the seeds, the best of the people from both sides. And if we can remember that, this is a way of reclaiming or restoring the story, the actual story, which is preserved in the Akasha, which is never forgotten. But you know, I just think about you know, in the 1800s and early part of this century, Cherokee children, other children from other tribes in our country, put in boarding schools and separated from their family, taught not to speak their language. And if we can just start to connect people to even just their mother and their father, the best things in their mother and their father, the qualities that they see in themselves. Anyway, that's enough for now. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. I can see it from the other way around too. But we had to consider that we are in these Kali Yuga times where all these things are happening, and it will continue to happen. But there is a lot of people that is working to change something, or to at least alleviate the suffering of others that are going through all these stages with a lot of pain. And that's why I think the role of the theosophies, of the role of all those that we are embracing the service of humanity, and that concept of universal brotherhood becomes more prominent than before. Karma is happening. We don't know why some people are going through more difficult times. No, we don't know if we will go through those difficult times later on in other life. We don't know. But what we can know, at least for now, is what we can do in order to understand ourselves better. And that helps our society and our families and our governments to do better, or at least to help others and alleviate a lot of the suffering, going back to the importance of the nucleus of the family and how love is the base of everything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we got a question here from the hall here in San Diego Lodge. Ken, do you want to just walk back here and, you know what I could do? Maybe this is weird, but I'm going to spin the whole computer around at you. Hopefully I won't cause a disaster, technological. There he is. There you go.
Hello there, Lisette. Thank you for that wonderful presentation. And I sort of riffing off of what Nathan was saying, do you think there's a way that we can encourage mentors for parents to help the parents feel more support? You mentioned it takes a village to raise a child. And I know in the Catholic Church, we would have godmothers and godfathers. And then we used to have more intergenerational families where the grandparents were living in the same house as the parents and the children. So we'd have 3 generations in a row close together. But that isn't our current style in America. And I'm wondering about encouraging within peer groups, or you might say racial groups, mentors. Do you think there's a way to do that? And why I ask that is because recently I was listening to a medical, psychiatric, psychological lecture saying that modern American Black people, parents, often beat their children at a higher rate and more violently than white parents or Caucasian American parents because of several generations ago of having been slaves in the USA in the 1800s and beaten by the slave owners or even killed by the slave owners. And so this has actually continued even to this century of 2020s. So what about the idea of parental mentors? How do you think that might fly from a theosophical perspective?
Well, I think everybody that is in theosophy or walking this path has that intrinsic duty of becoming this type of support, of mentoring or mentors for people that might need it. But I also think that families needs more support. And when I'm talking about family, and this is something that is happening here a lot now in the United States, it is a very interesting moment from the social point of view. Families are now considered and being accepted for not being just traditional families. Uh, so that's a first step. And then we need to advocate for the rights of families to stay together, to grow together, to support each other, and I think there is a lot that is being done, but it's going to take a little bit more time to see the results of these initiatives. And a lot of schools are providing help for parents, and children are also being uh, taught how to ask for help and to how to communicate better with their parents. So I think the process is happening. But at the same time, when this process is happening, we cannot avoid to think that there are other challenges that are more complex that are coming into place, and uh, that requires us to consider this situation and act in a faster manner in how to support these families. But I think if we all understand love and respect, and the BP Warrior talks about the yoga of self-respect, and we are able to disseminate this message, or to share this message of the yoga of respect. That's it. Just self-respect as a first step. Then everything else will be coming to a place. Um, Coming from South America, I have to say that body punishment is also used in this type of society, and I think what parents are doing is trying to keep the role that strong role that society is asking for, is demanding to have, but they don't know how to do it because we are learning from our parents. And if they learn corporal punishment as a way to have discipline, that's the way how they're going to discipline their children. And that's why the Grihastha stage is so important, because everything that we do, not only again in our homes, but also in our society, everything that we say is going to impact these lives, and it's going to set the basis for the next generation. So our role as theosophists goes beyond everything that we just think. Yeah, go ahead, Jonathan.
Could I jump in there for a minute? Maybe I'm going to sound like old-fashioned or out of it or whatever, but people assign the latter to me sometimes. But what I mean is, I don't know. I mean, you think about different people playing different roles in our society, and like doctors are really important, or some people think that movie stars are important, or some people think that engineers are important because they make something that's safe for people to drive on, like a freeway bridge or something like that. But I'm just thinking, I mean, this is probably true for mothers and fathers, but to me, isn't the ones that like affect future generations more important than the people that affect the current generation? Or am I missing it? I mean, it seems like moms are like the most, I mean, to me, you got like master's degrees, and then you got PhDs, and then about 100 yards up there is mothers. Up there higher than all those other ones. What do you think about that?
Agree. And motherhood is the most important stage of a woman's lifetime. However, it is hard to understand because of demand of modern society for women and the expectations that we have, not only as a mother but as a professional, etc., etc. So I think biggest issue that we are confronted here is that we are focusing more in the materialistic way of life than the spiritual
Mhm.
way of life. If every mother and father that is deciding to have a child, to bring a child to the world, understand that that is the opportunity for that ego to continue evolving, and for us as a parents to practice the sacrifice and the devotional love, things will be different. Main key point here is that still uh, we don't know who we are. We don't know why we're bringing children to the world.
Mhm.
We don't know why it's necessary for a child to be born. And we do not understand how important are those conditions to provide that life.
Mhm.
When society could stop and think about the miracle of life and how that happened, that goes beyond, just what the engineer work is doing, then maybe some other approaches will happen. There are some societies that recognize the role of mother and father, especially with a newborn, and there are governments that are paying these families to stay home with their children.
Yep.
Unfortunately, that's not happening here in the US. Here, it's another type of society. In South America, mothers are having a baby, they might spend 6 months at home with the baby, and their work is being paid. So the mother do not have to focus on, I'm missing some money to feed my family. It's just to focus in that special time with the baby. So, but again, I think the key point here is that we don't know why we're doing this.
Mhm.
We don't know why we're having babies. I mean, besides the love and growing in the family and putting the beautiful pictures of the family together every Christmas or every other time, but it has a meaning that goes beyond what right now is understood in the majority of societies. Maybe some societies are already confronting the aging of the population, and the young part of the society deciding to do not have children to because they don't know how to work with that responsibility. They don't want to have that responsibility. They don't feel ready. I think most societies are considering this role in a more in a deeper manner.
Yeah, it just shows how uncivilized we just don't even know what we're doing. It's just we're just uncivilized. And it reminds me of that thing that somebody asked Gandhi, well, what do you think of Western civilization? He says it would be a good idea.
Yeah, right. We're just getting started.
Nathan,
This
go for
reminds-
it.
I just have to, because when you say we don't know why we're here, our teacher one time said, he pointed out that we don't know why the heart beats. Scientists haven't got that figured out. But that's the thing that we pass on from generation to generation, actually. And that's the hero in us. And it's not any one person, and it doesn't belong to any one person, but it goes all the way back to the beginning. Beat, 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 beat. It jumps into another person and proliferates, but we don't know why that is. But the thing about I want to go back to what Ken was saying about mentorship, because having come from a family where there was domestic violence and being hit, and it was just awful. It was terrible to see what happened with my own dear parents, with me as a child. They didn't know what to do, so we ended up having some big trouble. And that's why I got into early childhood education, right? Because I didn't want to happen to me what happened to my dad, because it was just heartbreaking for him. So then time went by, and I studied up, and then I was a leader in the field of early childhood education, and I presented at a conference, and I thought, oh, I'm going to present about this spanking thing, because there's all this research, spanking not so good, right? And then I went to this conference. I was like, I don't know, mid-20s, and with these other early childhood education leaders, a lot of them African American, and it did not go over well, my presentation, because come to find out, actually the physical corporal punishment, although it's we would rather not have that, this is a way of demonstrating love, actually. And so I'm not advocating violence, but just culturally, looking at how we keep our people safe and how we keep our families together. It's different in different contexts. So it's hard to just tell everybody, don't do the good thing, or don't do the bad thing, do the good thing, and everybody agrees, because everybody does not agree. But in terms of mentorship, I think what we need is a kind of a spiritual mentorship, where it's not necessarily, well, it's exactly not telling people what to do. It's asking the question. We have to teach our children to be critical thinkers. And if we are going to have theosophists, if our children are going to be theosophists, at any rate, when I think it was HPV said that a theosophist is a person with the inspiration of their own to solve the world's problems. How do you get this inspiration, but get really good at asking questions? So instead of telling people what to do, we have to ask them, so why is it that you would do that? Why would you spank your child? Oh, okay, yeah, no, I see, that's very important. What's another way you could do that? So that kind of mentoring, it's not implementing one cultural perspective that is orthodox and everybody has to follow it, or they get thrown in the bad family jail. We have to show up like secret agents a little bit. So when I hear about a mentor program, it has to be, as theosophists, energetically, if we show up and we're asking questions, it will change things.
Seth, you got a little bit of time to kind of to answer Nathan, but also any final comments that you'd like to say, because we're kind of coming to a close.
Yeah, well, I wanted to say that I am very thankful for this opportunity, and this particular topic is very close to my heart, because as somebody coming from another culture, understanding beyond what I had in my small village, and understanding how important love is, not only as a person, as a mother, but also as a theosophy or student of theosophy, it goes beyond words. I think this kind of topic helps us to understand that our role is more meaningful than what we think it is. And as Nathan was mentioning, this role implies more understanding and less judging, more supporting than criticizing. Implies the flexibility of thinking that maybe things that I learned before are not the best way to do things or to understand other realities. So, and I think it opens doors for more work that from this conception of love we have to do every day. And and I am very thankful for that. And I hope this kind of devotion through the service, especially to the little ones, especially for those families that need it the most, especially for those families that are struggling with violence in the places where they live, and they had to keep their family safe. And one way to keep the family safe is to be, stronger at home than outside. All that, and really understanding that we might not know the causes. We know karma is acting through all those channels that it has to, but that we are there in order to provide the service that is needed. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, Liseth. Just brilliant. Thank you so much. And I hope you'll do more of these. So now's the opportunity for others to jump in there and tell her thanks if they want to. So
thank you. That was lovely, Liseth.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very heartfelt, Liseth. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
just brilliant. Thank
for
you
my
very
heart
much.
emojis. I know they do heart emojis on this Zoom thing, but I can't.
Okay,
Thank,
all right.
thank you very much.
So